be talking about. I can't do it. Kenny does a good. What's up? What's up, guys?
Yo,
Hi.
What's happening?
Dude,
come on, man.
I want to hear your Doc Rivers voice now.
I don't have one, man. I don't have a good one. Kenny's got a good one. I don't have one.
I believe it.
Jamie Foxx has a great one.
Well,
Have you ever heard Jamie Foxx do the?
Jamie Foxx is probably one of the most talented people on the planet.
I don't know that there's a probably attached to it. Like, I think he is the most talented person on the planet. Like, he is phenomenal.
Like, the fact that he's going to be playing Mike Tyson, and he's going to be awesome as Mike Tyson.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting. I love that dude, man. He's tremendous. I interviewed him once in Miami when I was at KSFM. One of the coolest guys on the, like, he is just, and this was shortly after Ray. So he was Jamie Foxx. Like, he was the guy. He's just as cool, just as down to earth as could possibly be.
Makes sense. He's perfect. My God.
I agree. I agree.
Oh, dude, you digging this? You see this shirt? It's a stunning Steve Austin.
Oh, that's dope. I love it. Is that one of those homage shirts? Shirts?
Pro wrestling tees.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I dig it.
Stunning Steve Austin. Love it.
That's great. That is fantastic.
How's it been going solo today? Is it weird?
No, it's not weird. It's Kyle Draper came on about an hour ago. No, it's just it's you guys know, it's just it's a different muscle.
Oh, totally.
You know, it's like working a marathon. It's like training for a marathon versus training for the 100-meter dash. You know what I mean? Like, it's different, and you try to pace yourself different, and it's tough. It's definitely tough. But you guys staying on with me so long is going to help, because it's like it hits the midway point of the show. So I'll come back and I'll have a short little break, and then it's kind of the home stretch from there. So your guys' flexibility helped me a lot.
Do you still have like green juice and everything that you used to do during shows? Like where yep. Nice. Yeah.
What's that even mean?
It's
so random.
Like, no, because he has such a long show that I was like, okay, well, what is he eating? And that's why I was like, oh, is he still doing that? Still
All right, we're coming back.
All right.
No KC today, but Kenny will be back with me tomorrow. We're thrilled that you are here with us on the Odyssey app, on twitch.tv/ESPN1320 and the ESPN 1320 YouTube channel. Hopefully you're watching because the crew is here with me, Deuce and Mo, the Deuce and Mo podcast. I'd imagine last night's night chat was a little bit different than some of the more recent night chats, but what is the overall feeling, guys, now that the win streak has come to an end?
The vibe on Night Show was a little weird last night, because I don't think the game was like bad enough to be super upset. You know what I mean? It was an early game, so you saw the hardcore people in there, but it was just kind of like, okay, we'll see. And I think that's the approach like all Kings fans should have right now. I think there's this like protective measure that they're all taking. Is like, all right, the last time this happened, it turned into a 9-game losing skid. So like, we'll see.
I think it's kind of like what we've been talking about throughout the season, Damian. It's just, is it going to be a fluke again? Is it going to be, what adjustments are actually going to be different this time around? So then you don't see them just like go downhill from here.
That's the concern. Like that's 100% the concern. That's why Kings fans are like, oh, they're like I always reference the guys in the outfield in the Major League movies where they're like, oh, here we go again. Oh, they're going to blow it. Like, and it's, we're not talking about last year. We're not talking about Dave Yeager's year. We're talking about like a month ago.
Yeah.
Like we fool me once, you can't get fooled again. Like I don't want to go through this anymore. You know what I mean? So like you've got this Lakers game on the docket, and it's like, oh, I feel like we should win, but I'm really scared to say I feel like we should win.
And not only that, I really wish Kenny was here today, because I was really excited to talk to him about, him always obviously pushing that, hey, I think this team could get the 10th spot. And he was saying that from day one, but here's the difference. He was saying that from day one with a different roster. Now that they've added some depth and they've added some athleticism and everyone's healthy at this moment. I mean, the starters are healthy at this time point, it seems more realistic when you talk about that playing game now. It seems like something that can be there, but I think it's just going to really be game by game for a lot of people, because you talk about this Lakers team without LeBron, without AD, and now probably without Drummond. It's looking like one of those games like they should win, but what kind of team are they going to be?
Yeah, and I hate and that's something that I hate. Oh, that's a game they should win. Like, okay, based on what?
Yeah,
because they are like 4 or 5 games under 500. Let's not start talking about games that they should win. Sure, the game against the Lakers before the All-Star break, I know they won. I'd argue that game was not good. Like, that game should not have gone the way. It's great that the Kings won, but when you can, all things considered, like, that wasn't particularly a great outing by the Sacramento Kings, and it feels like we're set up for another one of those.
Yeah. It's weird because you're right. It's based on what we've seen this year. We saw this team win 7 of 8, and then they just crapped the bed for 9 straight. So I'm not saying they should win the game. Like, hey, they're clearly better. But if they want to prove that they're a legitimate team that's going to make a push here, then yeah, it's a game you should win. And really, looking at the next 5 games, they should go 3-2. Like, you got to beat the Lakers when they're shorthanded. If you're a team that's going to take care, you got to beat the Lakers. You got to beat Minnesota. Minnesota's a joke. I know Anthony Edwards is coming along, and it's a great story. He looks like he could play, but you got to take care of business. And then at home against Detroit, I'm already bracing for Corey Joseph to have like 25 in the game winner. Like, I'm already mentally preparing for this, but there's 3 wins right there. And, Milwaukee, Utah, that's going to be a challenge. But you go 3-2. Okay, now we can start talking again. You're really stringing something together. I'm curious to see how they bounce back after the game against San Antonio. To me, it seemed like the Spurs really adjusted well to Fox. They went, hey, Fox, we're going to make you try to be a playmaker tonight and take away. We're going to throw guys at you. We're going to impact the paint, make life a little more difficult. And then the Kings, of course, played terrible defense in the first half and missed a lot of shots in the second.
But also, you should expect those expectations from well-coached teams like the San Antonio Spurs. And I hope that's what the Sacramento Kings got to see and experience, even just in a small sample size of seeing what it was like to play the same team back-to-back.
And how much of, you mentioned De'Aaron and the adjustments that the Spurs made. I feel like that's De'Aaron's life in the NBA now. I feel like after the month of March that he had, where it's like, okay, he kind of showed us a little bit different. He can be a scorer. Like, he could be a big time scorer in this league. So now game plans may have shifted a little bit, and he could be experiencing nights like he just experienced against San Antonio on a nightly basis.
Oh, absolutely. You're number 1 on the scouting report. And he was already pretty much number 1, right? To begin with.
Oh, for sure.
And now the way he's playing, it's like, no, this is the guy. This is the guy that makes everything happen for this team. And also you're going to lose games in the NBA. You're not going to have perfect nights. He had one so-so game after a great stretch of basketball. So I'm not worried about it by any means. And I honestly think starting Tyrese Halliburton's only going to help him.
Yes.
I think it's helped Buddy Hield to have an additional ball handler on the floor. So, I don't expect Buddy Hield and Fox to go 0 for 12 in the first half of a game. I mean, you're not going to win many games when that happens. So it's going to be interesting this next 5-game stretch. But that's what I love, Damian. This is like the fact that we're going to have in this conversation now. And it's fun from the standpoint that's different, right? It's not like, hey, the starters are just hot again. The bench isn't really doing anything. And it's not really going to work out. The bench looks different. Like, DeLon Wright looks as if he's a guy who could help you. Terrence Davis could be frustrating at times for sure, because I can already tell he's a chucker. But when he gets hot, it's fun. He's able to force turnovers. They're long. They're a little more athletic. It kind of fits the style and brand of basketball that they've been talking about, how they wanted to play like all year long.
But it's not only the bench that looks different too. We talk about De'Aaron Fox, and he looks different, and how his game was looking way more consistent. And on top of that, really becoming more of an outside threat from a jump shot to a 3-point shot. You're starting to see that more and more, that adjustment come this season. And with teams, sure, he's going to be number 1 on the scouting report, but for De'Aaron Fox, when you're the best player on the floor, your teammates are going to find ways to get you even more open, whether that's clearing the paint, whether that's moving around, setting harder screens for you. And for him to have Tyrese Halliburton by his side now in that starting rotation is, like you said, it's just going to elevate his game.
I feel like come hell or high water, we're going to find a way to take away minutes from Buddy Hield no matter what. And so let's do that now. Do you see is there a way, do you see a situation where, we saw the third quarter, like Buddy didn't score in the first, the second, or the fourth. But I feel like the reason Buddy plays the minutes that he does, the reason, and it's one of the things that is maddening about Buddy Hield, it's one of the things that is great about Buddy Hield, is he's capable of third quarters like he had last night. And he got hot. He got going. The problem is the Kings couldn't follow those threes up. They couldn't follow those barrage of points up with any stops on the defensive end. So ultimately what happened is the two teams just traded baskets. But could Luke ever sacrifice the offensive output, the offensive explosion that Buddy might give you and put DeLon Wright in there for those final minutes to maybe up the defensive side of the ball a little bit, which, as Deuce laid out a minute ago, was severely lacking yesterday?
It's an interesting point. Buddy didn't play well yesterday, but if you look at the month of March, played pretty well overall.
Sure.
Like season highs in points, assists, rebounds, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage. So I don't know if it's almost hey, we're trusting this now. Like, he's been in a good rhythm. Let's let him get out of it. Let's see if he can get something going, because you're right. When he gets hot, there's not a lot of guys who get as hot as him when he gets going. But if you're sacrificing so much on the defensive end, maybe that's an adjustment you make. I do think coaches tend to trust guys a lot. Like, they want to have that belief in them instead of going, all right, you know what? He may hit some threes, but I need stops right now. And can Terrence Davis or DeLon Wright come in and fill that void and wreak some havoc defensively that could create easier opportunities on the other end? It's a weird balance. And I don't know what the right answer is there, because I honestly, we've all talked about Buddy Hield a lot, like every week on this show, and how much we've talked about him maybe coming off the bench. But this month, the Kings been playing better basketball, right? They had 9 wins, and he was a big part of it.
And it's almost like he's earned those important minutes, in these games. And I believe in rewarding that in so many different ways. But at the same time, like, I'm with you. It's something you definitely do have to question, and you go, do you want more of that defensive presence? I think it's just going to be a game by game scenario, right? Like, what is it that you're really looking for, or what kind of team are you playing against that you really need to make sure you have out there on the floor? And obviously, if it's something on the defensive end, you're going to want someone like DeLon Wright in there.
Yeah, and I feel bad because I feel like I'm constantly saying something about Buddy where you could put him in a different role or have him do something else. But when you look at the lineup with Harrison, Rashawn, Tyrese, and De'Aaron, from a defensive standpoint, it's like you are the weakest link, to use a term from like 20 years ago.
Goodbye.
So
is that late now? Where is she?
I have no clue. I don't even remember who that is, to be honest with you.
She's a redhead. She was really mean. She was just so mean.
Rest in peace, mean lady.
Yeah.
Go on.
Oh, is she dead?
No,
probably.
I'm kidding.
I'm guessing.
Oh. As Deuce so clearly turns to his computer to look up this person. When you look at okay, give me the update. Like, where are we at with the weakest link lady? And why haven't we rebooted this show yet?
She's alive. Ann Robinson. She is 76 years old.
Oh, God.
Still with us.
Still kicking.
Good
My bad. You
still
are
mean.
not link. Ann.
Still mean.
Still mean.
She would want Buddy Hield out of the lineup. That's for sure. I could tell you that. But when we talk about what I was saying was the defensive end, DeLon Wright, he could help it. And not that it wasn't Buddy that was playing poor defensively. Like, the Kings were playing poor defensively. And when Buddy got going, when De'Aaron finally started getting to the basket there in that third quarter, Rashawn got a couple of putbacks. You felt like offensively, like, okay, we've got something here, but it was just basket for basket, for possession after possession for like 4 straight minutes. And as many points as the Kings scored, they couldn't chip into the lead because they couldn't do anything on the offensive end.
Yeah, and it got a little better in the late stages of the third and the fourth. San Antonio started the third quarter 9 of 10. And then even the first half, I felt like, I don't know if it was a game plan or miscommunication defensively, but I think they were so focused on the paint. And I felt like everyone was collapsing around like Pirtle or whoever was there inside the paint, and then leaving guys wide open for 3. The Spurs knocked down 8 threes in the first half? Mm-hmm. They're not really a good 3-point shooting team. You don't think of them as a team that's going to knock down so many in the first half of games. And it was like they had 8 with 7 minutes to go or something in that second quarter. So I don't know what was going on there. It did get better in the second half. It's interesting. I still maintain that I think Buddy Hield should be coming off the bench. I think he'd be better in that role. I think you can stagger it and make sure he's out there playing with Halliburton or playing with Wright, so there is an additional ball handler out there. And I think you could have an elite bench when you talk about bringing Buddy and Terrence Davis and maybe staggering those minutes. I think it'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, and especially with the way that Buddy is playing, I know, of course, he would never believe that he should be coming off the bench, but you talk about the pieces that they have added now and what they can accomplish with that starting lineup. Damien, you and I remember it was a few weeks ago and you asked me, you're like, well, what we're seeing now when the Kings were losing, so was that winning streak just a fluke? And there's something about it where I couldn't say it was a fluke, and I figured it out. It really was because they had this talented starting unit, right? And so now you look at those pieces again and they're all healthy, but now you have another piece to make it even a little bit better. And I do believe by adding that defensive presence with DeLon Wright out there would make a huge difference.
There's a lot to dissect with what you just said. You're listening to D-Lo and KC on ESPN 1320 KIFM, West Sacramento, KRXQ, HD2 Sacramento, and driven by last year's Elk Grove Dodge and Odyssey Station. No KC today, though. Kenny will be back with me tomorrow. Deuce and Mo with me here on twitch.tv/ESPN 1320 and the ESPN 1320 YouTube channel. Deuce looking stunning in his stunning Steve Austin t-shirt. Today is the 20-year anniversary of WrestleMania 17.
That was the big. What wasn't that when Austin shook hands with Vince?
Austin shook hands with the devil himself. You
did a podcast on that.
I did. Like the intersects of that heel turn were like the intersects of that entire year were just incredible, because it was the year before. It was there was talks of turning Austin heel at WrestleMania 2000, which was horrible, because I paid to go there. So it was really, really horrible. WrestleMania 16, they talked about turning him heel there, which is almost unthinkable. But if you recall what happened the week before WrestleMania 2000 is the most seismic thing that's probably happened in wrestling in 20 years. The Rock hosted Saturday Night Live. And that obviously changed the trajectory, not only of his wrestling career, it changed the trajectory of everything he was going to do with his life moving forward. So that Relive episode kind of told that whole story, but that it all culminates, like everything that the Attitude Era of wrestling culminated at WrestleMania 17. Because you know what was also going on at the time was the XFL, and they had just bought WCW 6 days earlier. So WrestleMania 17 marked the end of everything that we knew for a 3 or 4 year stretch.
And it happened on April Fool's Day, huh?
Yeah. A lot of things happen on April Fool's Day. Happy anniversary, guys.
Thank you.
I know you guys celebrate this day in your own unique way every single year. And, some people say it's the best thing that happened to me. Looking at the success that you guys have achieved over the course of the last 5 years.
Yeah.
It's been 5 years.
It's just absolutely incredible.
Thanks, Dave.
You guys are our role models for sure. You were talking about the starting lineup a second ago.
Yes.
And I feel like, Marvin Bagley's still on the team. And it might be breaking news. Marvin Bagley still is. He's not with the team, which
I haven't seen him. So I didn't
I was going to say. I was going to say, I'm curious how you two feel about that. I text Deuce for a little behind the scenes note. I think I might have said this on the air. Kenny had mentioned not seeing Marvin. And so I pulled up Synergy and I'm looking at a highlight wait, I feel like I'd be able to notice him. He's not there. I text Deuce. Deuce was like, well, I don't know, but I wasn't looking. And it was shortly after that show that Jason Anderson had the report that Marvin is away from the team. I'm curious how you two feel about that.
I'm going to preface this by saying, if there's something bigger going on in his personal life or something major happening, I'm fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with what we know, I'm not aware of anything. There's nothing been reported. I have zero idea if there's something going on. I don't understand for the life of me why you wouldn't be around the team. And there's so many benefits to this. one, you're around winning right now.
Mm-hmm.
Feel that. The connection that's forming with this team,
Yes.
and you're not a part of it right now. You got hurt, and it sucks. It's disappointing. I can understand, like, you're frustrated, all this stuff. That's why you have teammates too. They can lift you. They're part of it. They're your family during the season. You didn't tear your ACL. You didn't hurt your back. There's nothing that would prevent you from traveling. I'm just disappointed because I think it's a valuable time for him to be around the team. And I understand the frustration. With Kings fans being frustrated about it, I'm sure it's times a billion for Marvin Bagley. But him not being around, just it rubs me the wrong way. I guess as someone who's competitive, as someone who's about being a team player, like, if I was in that situation, you're damn well, I would be there. I would make sure I was there every single game, every single practice, because I'm part of this team.
And I think that goes at every level of sports. It doesn't matter what level you're playing at. When you have a teammate, and again, different situations, obviously, when you travel and there's AAU compared to high school or whatever. But when you're on a team and one of your teammates aren't making the extra effort to get there just because, they're hurt, so they're not playing, they're not contributing that way. There's so much more that their energy and their presence can contribute, especially on the bench, especially when you are in an empty arena trying to create your own energy. It's great when you know that everyone has your back. And so, yes, just like Deuce said in the beginning, if there's something more on there, like going on, it's, it hasn't been reported and we can get there when we get there. But from what you're seeing now, looking from the outside, it's just not a good look.
Yeah, it's you mentioned that on a recent podcast, and I know, like, we know watching at home that the arena is empty, and you did tremendous work on the Breaking Barriers game last Saturday, and it was just awesome to see you on television doing what you do. But that was the first time you were in the arena, and that was the first time you had watched the game under the current circumstances. So we hear Doug, we hear Mark, or we hear Mark and Kyle. Like, we always hear something, but when you're in the arena, you've just got your benches and that's it.
That's it.
And some fake crowd noise in the background that doesn't feel real.
It's so true. And Damien, even when that game winner by Harrison Barnes happened, I mean, immediately after, everyone, all the guys are cheering on the bottom. You don't hear any cheering. You maybe hear some music and then it's done. It is just dead silent because everyone's in their locker rooms and then they're doing an interview with Harrison Barnes on the court in a silent arena. So again, it just goes to what that one teammate, that presence of that one teammate actually does, not only for the energy and the vocals, but you can sense when your teammate doesn't want to be there or doesn't make that effort, and it doesn't feel good going forward.
Yeah, and you brought up the game winner. That would have been a pretty special moment to be a part of, right? Like, this feels like it's kind of shifting, and the celebration. It was an improbable shot. It was unbelievable. It's like one of the most bizarre game winners that we've seen in the NBA in like a decade. You don't see plays like that from the pass to the catch, the shoot, the shot. I mean, it was unbelievable, and he wasn't there for it. Now, on the flip side, he may be in a really dark place right now,
right? And
we all know about mental health and getting injured and then coming back and getting injured again. That can't be fun to go through. So I also hope on the other side, you've got his teammates reaching out and just checking in with him. Hey, you good? We want you back. Hey, come back when you're, whatever it is. I don't know. But either way, I think it would benefit him, even if he doesn't see it right now, to be there and be around the guys and just feel the vibes of what's happening right now. Even if he's not on the court, he could still play a role as a teammate. I mean, we saw Cabangeli in his one game. Kings he was going crazy on the bench for these guys.
Kings legend Cabangeli.
To have that.
Yeah. Does it feel like this relationship between the Kings and Bagley is damaged? Like, do you think it could? Let me rephrase that. If the relationship between Bagley and the Kings is damaged, do you think it could be repaired at this point?
I do. And the only reason why I say I really do believe that, I think
because you're an optimist.
One, I'm an optimist. Two, I think Luke Walton is an optimist. And I think the type of coach he is, he digs deep to build those relationships. Look at the the way that he had to build his relationship with Buddy Hield. Look at his relationship. You had Ramona Shelbourne on the other day. Wonderful interview. And she was talking about his relationship with De'Aaron Fox. And it's just on like a deeper connection. And so you look at the way that this coach connects with players, and you can't blame him for any relationship issues at this point in my eyes. So I think with Marvin Bagley, it's just like anything in life. In any relationship, you have to take time to work it out. And I think that's the only way to actually make this move forward.
It'll certainly be interesting, as you talked about, how we're talking about the success of the lineup. We're talking about the success of the lineup change with this current roster right now, and the addition of a bench that seems to really be working, and especially in comparison to what the bench used to be. And the timeline fits for Marvin Bagley to be back this season. Another crossroads that Luke Walton and the coaching staff are going to have to deal with is, what is his role going to be when he comes back? Because if the team continues to play well, and I've made I've taken on the Kenny Caraway status of making bold proclamations. If this team can avoid a 3-game losing streak, I think they can make the playoffs. But I think they have to avoid a 3-game losing streak. They have to play consistently good basketball for the rest of the way. And if that's the case, integrating a player back into the lineup, even a guy who was 14-8 or somewhere around there, that's going to be difficult.
Oh, it definitely is. And first things first, if the Kings are playing well, he's not going back in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
Right. That just can't happen. And I don't care who that's going to upset. I don't care if that, upsets his dad. You got to do what's best for the team. And I do think the Kings could use another big body coming off the bench. I mean, we talk about how they're getting destroyed in the paint. Some of these bigs have been issues. And I know, look, I'm not acting like Marvin's defensive player of the year, but again, from a rebounding perspective, he can hit the glass. It's another body to go and throw out there, and he can give you a scoring punch coming off the bench. It's going to be tough because I don't know when the timeline is. It sounds like they're going to reevaluate him in a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's like sometimes we take the reevaluation thing and say, oh, he's going to be back in 4 weeks, where it's like, no, they're going to look at him again in 4 weeks and determine when he's going to be able to return.
So I guess we have to wait and see what happens there, because at that point, it could be just a couple of weeks left in the season. Mm-hmm. And implementing someone like him back in the lineup could be challenging.
The unique thing with Marvin, though, is he possesses probably the biggest thing that the Kings are lacking right now. And I think this is going to be an issue. It's going to be a huge issue versus the Lakers. It's going to be a massive issue versus Brooklyn. It's size.
Yeah.
Like, they're getting out rebounded. They may not win the points in the paint battle the rest of the season. And if they do, it's because De'Aaron just went to the basket over and over and over again. And it's part of that is because Marvin Bagley is out of the lineup. Like, part of that is because Marvin Bagley isn't around, and they're playing this small ball to start the game. They're playing it to start the game, and they're playing it to finish the game.
Yeah, I think there needs to be more of a responsibility even on some of these guards to be crashing the boards. I think you look at last night, I forget the exact numbers for De'Aaron Fox, and
Fox had no rebounds. I think the three guards, Halliburton, Hield, and Fox combined for 2 rebounds last night.
Exactly. It's just not enough. Like, even if your role on this team is to ball goes up, you shoot to the lanes, one person's there for the outlet. Like, you need to be sure that you're still staying aggressive and crashing the boards, especially if you're seeing shots flying everywhere. So I think there's just going to become a bigger responsibility for more of these players to rebound. But Deuce and I always talk about the size of these guys. You look at someone like Richaun Holmes, he's not this big, girthy guy. And so they're missing that in their rotation, especially when it comes to mismatches and just matching up against certain players. So I don't know what they're going to do right now when they want to face that, but I think it's something they obviously have to look at in the offseason.
Yeah, I don't know how they adjust at this point, because Holmes and Metu aren't going to be bulking up in the next 3 weeks. So, could Whiteside come back? And again, we talk about the adventures of Hassan Whiteside. He's a big body, though. Even last night, though, you throw him out there against Pirtle. I think Pirtle was blowing by him and getting and-1s. So that's the concern there, and it is a big concern. I think also starting to feel like people are, and that was one theme on Night Chat last night. A couple of people going, yeah, Rashawn Holmes is just not good enough. Rashawn Holmes isn't just defending these guys one-on-one. Rashawn Holmes is everywhere. I'm starting to get to the point. I brought this up last night, Damien. I feel like some of the things we talk about with Rashawn Holmes are things that people brought up about Isaiah Thomas, like pointing out the flaws. And it's like, yeah, but what about all the things he does well? Like Rashawn Holmes isn't the biggest dude. And yeah, he struggles against bigger guys. Joel Embiid, everyone struggles with that guy. Jokic, the list goes on. He's going to struggle. But can you build your roster to cover up some of those deficiencies and bring the best out of him? I think Rashawn Holmes has proven this year that he's got to be in Sacramento, and you got to keep him. Otherwise, it's going to be the same thing. Maybe not to the extent that he becomes an all-star like Isaiah Thomas did, but I think you would automatically regret letting someone like Rashawn Holmes go because of what he brings every single night. How many times has he had 20 points this year? And it's so easy for him to get 20 points. He crashes the glass. Even last night,
14 and 15. Yeah,
Pirtle had a good night too, but so did Rashawn Holmes, and he blocked a couple of shots. He was a monster on the glass. And I think there's this weird vibe I'm getting from some people that are like, yeah, I don't know, I want to pay him. It's not worth it. No, those are the guys you got to keep around long term.
I try to preface this. I always try to remind people we're not spending our money on this, so it's okay. Yeah. But I'll ask, because there are salary caps involved here. What's the cost? I asked this to Kyle Draper earlier. He said, I mean, if it's 10 million, it's a no brainer, right? I was like, yeah, of course it's a no brainer. But what if we get to like 15? Yeah. Where's the point that Monty doesn't love Rashawn anymore?
I'm not like a complete salary cap expert, but I'm pretty sure they can only offer him in that first year $10.5 million. And I don't know how much they can go up from there. There's like a little bit of a challenge there for Sacramento. When we talked to Bobby Marks about this, his point was, well, look around the league in the offseason. How many teams have cap space? Okay. It's not that many. And then how many of those teams would want to spend money on Rashawn Holmes? Obviously, it only takes one team to want to pay the guy, and that would become a challenge. And I think that's obviously something Monty McNair's got to figure out, like moving the pieces around. When you add DeLon Wright's salary for next season, well, okay, how are you going to handle this? I'd be willing to spend up to $15 million on Rashawn Holmes because I do think he's that important to the team. Even watching him last night, I know the Kings weren't great defensively, but I just thought his effort defensively, coming out on guys, coming out on guards, I feel him out there. I notice him. And he's still young. I mean, he's 27, 28 years old.
Even when he's not putting numbers up on his stat line, it's incredible just watching him off the ball. The way that he puts effort into every screen, every time he's fighting for rebounds, the way that he has to pick up guys after his perimeter defense, lets them go all the way into the paint. And then he has to be the guy that steps up and is there for them. There's so many little things he brings on the floor. And then you look at off the floor, when someone plays with joy, and we talked about this too with Tyrese Halliburton, when they play with joy, they become very important because that joy becomes very contagious. And it's a very long season to be away from your families, to just be traveling, to be, especially in this COVID world. So he brings so much more than just his game, and he's just going to get better. So that's why I think you should be willing to spend up to 15. But at the same time, I think there could be another team out there that's also willing.
Deuce Mo with us here on D'Lo and KC on ESPN 1320. It's pretty much on brand. We've talked about the bench. We've talked about injured players, De'Aaron, Tyrese. We've talked about Rashawn Holmes this season, next season. We've talked about Buddy Hield, putting him in and out of the starting lineup. Let's finally get to Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes is always the last person brought up in every conversation, but I think one thing that's been blanketed in the way that the Kings have won, and really the way that the Kings have played over the course of the last, I think we're up to like 9 games or so now in this starting lineup change, is that Harrison Barnes was having a career year. And once he moved in here, kind of out of position here at this 4 spot, it's changed kind of the trajectory of his season, and it's changed what he's been able to do out there on the floor. Is that just a byproduct of the position he's now in, or does this staff have to figure out a way to get him back involved and to get him more aggressive again?
That's interesting. I feel like he's missed a lot of threes lately. The 3-point shooting hasn't been where it was earlier in the season. I think to your point, he's playing a different position. And so his rebounding numbers are way up right now. Like, I feel like his focus has been less about scoring. And maybe that's just because, Fox is doing his thing. Halliburton's chipping in, Hield, Holmes. And he's like, you know what? I can focus. What do you need from me? But I think if you talk to Luke Walton would say, Harrison, you still got to be aggressive offensively. Yep. We still need you to score. Like, we need you to get us 16 to 20 points and get us rebounds for sure, but we need you to be scoring. And, even last night, I thought he missed some good looks. He missed some looks around the basket. And the last time he got in a little funk like this, was when he was a little banged up. Yep. So I don't know if that's something going on there. But he's also going up against some big dudes right now, and he's battling inside to get rebounds. So it's something to watch because they need his presence out there. They need that scoring punch.
I feel like when his shot is a little bit off, it usually looks like, heavy legs, or even like Deuce was saying, when he was a little banged up, everyone was questioning like, gosh, nothing's falling. And he's not being as aggressive. It's because he couldn't be as explosive, and he, couldn't do as much from beyond the arc and outside. So going forward, yeah, sure, you got to keep doing the other things and crashing the boards and being that big body defensively, being able to take on so many different guys. But like Deuce is saying, how can you make sure you're still contributing enough on the offensive end? It's a lot for him. But at the same time, I think having these expectations for Harrison Barnes are very much doable, and he's just going to keep getting better. He's in his prime. These are his prime years, which it always, again, seems like Harrison Barnes is so much older than he is. Mm-hmm. He's in his prime years. So hopefully he really takes advantage of that.
You laid out the next 5 games going 3-2. Do you think they could pull this off?
Do you think
they could pull off a 10 spot or a 9 spot or whatever?
I thought you meant the 3-2 stretch. I think they go 3-2. The 10th. Yeah, I think, you look about around the other teams around them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't look at San Antonio and go, they are way better than the Kings.
Right.
Well, they're in that 8th spot, right? Dallas, there's more of a gap there because they've got Luka. I get that. But, Memphis, would you go Memphis? Oh, they're way better. New Orleans, way better. I think there's a lot of teams kind of bunched up. Same with Golden State. They've got Steph, but Steph is playing. I mean, he's walking around with literally butt hurt. I mean, his butt is hurting him right now, and he's trying to grind through it. But that team's flawed too. They're going to have an opportunity. They do. As wild as that sounds, and I would not have said that before the trade deadline.
Yes.
Because of the moves they made, I have more of a belief that they have a chance now. I do. But you can't have hiccups, and this is why this 5-game stretch we keep talking about. You got to be 3-2 on this stretch. Like, you can't go to Minnesota, even though it's a weird 1-game road trip. Who the hell schedules that? Hey, let's go across the country to play in Minnesota and come right back to Sacramento. Anyway, Minnesota, you have to win that game. I know I'm not calling it must win, but we're talking about these games here. These are opportunities.
Necessary win.
Yeah, if you want to be legit and you want to, the season's shrinking day by day by day. You got to get some wins here.
Yeah, I think for them, it's like you said. You look at the West, and the Sacramento Kings made adjustments at the trade deadline, where a lot of these teams below, you didn't see these splash moves or even under the radar moves that's going to make them that much better to push for that 10 spot. Where the Kings made me believe on trade deadline. And that's why, and especially then seeing what they can contribute now. Obviously, things still have to come together for these new guys coming off the bench, but it's very believable seeing them actually push for that 10 spot and getting there.
Yeah, I look at this 1 through 6, clearly better than the rest of the West, right? Like, no one's catching Portland for that 6th spot, I don't think, out of that group that we just talked about.
It might be LA. It might be the Lakers that catch them.
I mean, the way they're falling apart, who knows, right? I mean, it could be. But yeah, so I just think they're so bunched up there. I legitimately don't look around and go, all right, I don't go, hey, the Pelicans are so much better. Zion's playing well right now. They seem like they might have something. But the Kings are playing well too. I don't. Do you think there's a big difference between these teams that we're talking about?
No, not those. No, especially when you talk about, I mean, the difference between the Golden State Warriors and everything else is clearly Steph. Like I thought that was a team that would be able to manage without him, and it doesn't appear that they can. Like they haven't been able to, and their 4-game losing streak came to an end when Steph came back and just gutted through, that performance. I think it was against the Chicago Bulls on Monday. Memphis, part of me is just waiting for it to happen again. I'm just waiting for the end of the season to get here and Memphis to do what they did last year in Orlando and kind of fall away. New Orleans is the confusing one to me. I know Jrue Holiday was a big loss for them. I didn't realize it was this big. I expected them to ascend a little bit, and Zion is as advertised. Like he's phenomenal. The Pelicans are not. And the NBA really wants the Pelicans to be good, and it's not materializing right now. So, yeah, like I'm completely with you. When you look at the competition and you realize these schedules are going to be a little weird. KC laid out for us yesterday. Spurs don't have 2 days off the rest of the season.
Wow,
they had why am I forgetting? We did it 5 games to make up from the first half of the season. Memphis has games to make up from the first half of the season. 2 of them are against the Sacramento Kings at the end of the year. So the Kings, when we talked about this before the second half of the schedule was released, teams that avoided being matched up against teams that were in COVID protocol or found themselves in COVID protocol were really going to be at as much of a scheduling advantage as you could possibly be in the second half of the season. And that's what we're seeing. I believe, I believe San Antonio is a little bit better than the Kings, just because I believe their coach better. I believe the organization is better, but I do think at some point in about 2 weeks, team's going to be dog ass tired.
Yeah.
And it's going to be difficult for them to have, completely gutted out victories maybe when they're on the road for 3 or 4 or something along those lines. So it's going to be as has been the case for, 14, 15 months, it's going to be a real, kind of interesting end to this season.
I'm excited for it. I'm just glad that we're having this conversation.
Brooklyn's not winning. I'm putting my foot down. Brooklyn's not winning the finals.
Wait, is it because you don't want that or you believe?
Yes, Deuce, it's because I don't want that.
Look, I'm not even anti that. Here's my thing on Brooklyn. Everyone's, they had this guy. They had this guy. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't matter if Kevin Durant doesn't come back soon and start playing. Durant was supposed to be out how many games? He's not back yet. And last year, everyone, hey, the Clippers, it's the Clippers, it's the Clippers. And, just wait till they play together. They just have to play together in the playoffs. And then they got to the playoffs and the chemistry.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to deny the Nets' talent. And they've got far more talent, in my opinion, than the Clippers did last year. But those guys do need to build chemistry, right? Like,
there was this that Stat Muse that puts out all those different stats on Twitter, and they put out last night something about KD, Kyrie, and James Harden have only played 7 games together, and KD coming back, things are going to be scary. And I was trying to find a way to retweet it and be like, well, not necessarily, because if you really, and then I was like, it's too long. I'm not even going to get into it. But really now I can talk about it here, because you use the Clippers example. And I think that is a great example, because the postseason in the NBA is an entirely different game. The way that these teams produce and play together, especially team basketball, when they're in the postseason, it's just different. The physicality, the aggressiveness, the togetherness you have to have. Now, again, we can all be completely wrong, and these, amazing players somehow still just dominate even without the chemistry, even without certain things. But I just feel like the way that basketball is played and the way that NBA basketball is played in the postseason, it just doesn't make sense unless KD starts coming back and they start actually playing together.
Deuce Mo, the Deuce Mo podcast. Catch them after every single Kings game here on Twitch, here on YouTube. You can check them out on Odyssey, too, in the podcast form. You can check them out wherever you get podcasts from. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back with more. Guys, did you know it's opening day in Major League Baseball? Who knew? We got that as D-Lo KC. Continue here on Sacramento's #1 sports station, ESPN 1320. All right. Thank you, guys. That was awesome.
That was fun.
That was so fun. Thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome.
You had no breaks during that time. Is that?
Yeah, we have Danny gives us a lot of leeway into when we go to break. So we'll come back and we'll do something kind of like short.
Yeah.
And then get back on track. And then I'll do like I'll do 47 to 13. And then I'll go commercial free again until 4.
That's dope.
So
think outside the box, Danny. I appreciate that.
Danny in San Francisco is very, very good with that stuff.
Yeah, that's what happens when you don't have like some 65-year-old programming a sports station.
No, we got a break on the quarters. All right, let's make sure to hit them. All right.
Well, that's what it's what happens when you have a program director who actually cares about the radio station. Or I be careful. You have a program director who actually programs the radio station, and it's not a general manager who programs the radio station.
That's a good.
Not that is a thing here, but it's just. It's cool. It's weird. It was weird. It was weird to have like someone involved in the show. Like, wow, this is
for sure. Someone that like, hey, here's some ideas. Here's some coaching. Hey,
yeah,
here's some feedback.
Wow. Yeah, wild. So first time he gave me feedback, I was like, what the?
What a weird concept, guys.
It's like, excuse me.
I'm not used to this whole thing.
Yeah. Like, baby steps, Danny in San Francisco. Like, hold on. That's good stuff.
Oh, that's too
good. Of course, Danny's here. He's making sure I don't screw up this show.
Oh, there he is. I'm 65 at heart, he says.
He does have some gray in that picture. So
yeah,
he was a little older than I think.
Old soul, Danny. You're an old soul.
The heartthrob, Danny. Oh, man.
All right, guys. Well,
fun stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck the rest of the show, dude. That's awesome.
Thanks. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. All right.
Bye.
All right, guys. See ya. Deuce and Mo. Here we go. All right. I hope everything's going well, man. Where am I? Where's this Golden Girls? This must have been something that happened in the chat and I missed it. I must have missed the Golden Girls reference because I've seen a couple of these and don't get it. KC just texted me. KC's, I don't know if he's listening or watching.